thing.
It is 2024, and this is Motorsports Race Talk Podcast. I am joined here with my co-host Kevin, and our guest today is former monster truck driver Todd Morey. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Hey, happy to be here, guys. Appreciate that. I hope not to be former. I try to jump in a truck every once in a while, but it has been a little while. So.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But before we get started, we have breaking news out of the racing world. SRX has sent this message. It is with deep disappointment that we announced the postponement of SRX's fourth season. We entered the next phase of our racing series with great anticipation and excitement for what was ahead. Our expectations, however, have been tampered by market factors that have proven too much to overcome. Time has run out to put forth the kind of events our fans, partners, drivers, and tracks deserve. We're thankful to each other for their commitment, their contributions, their support as we brought our new idea to reality. The racing industry continues to evolve, and we are actively exploring strategic options for the series' long-term potential. We made the announcement now to allow our partners the time and flexibility to best serve their interests. We will provide updates on future plans for SRX when they become available. And that was from Tony Stewart.
SRX. So this coming on the heels of Ray Evernham's IROC announcement. I find
correct.
I find that very interesting. Huh.
As do I.
I wonder if there was something legal backside because Ray Evernham was in SRX to begin with, and then abruptly he was out.
He was.
So I wonder. That's very interesting to me.
Okay. Right, because I'm over here thinking like, okay, so what's the fourth track? I know there's going to be six. I know there's still one track left to go, and I'm like, okay, what track is it? It was awfully strange how they had not made that announcement yet, because normally by this time they have all six races set to go.
Yeah, and CBS, a huge partner there. It was interesting the structure of that deal with Tony Stewart, SRX, CBS. And CBS, for the first time, I believe it was the first time the network ever was involved in partial ownership. That was something new. Very, very strong announcement. That's for sure. I'm sure we'll get more details in the coming days, but that's very odd announcement.
Yeah, because they said, there'll be a 2024 IROC race featuring classic cars, and then it's awfully funny because you're right. It was it was either yesterday or Tuesday that it was announced, and I'm like, but isn't that what SRX is supposed to be? And then you saying that, it's like maybe Braverham's like, now let's bring back IROC and let's bring back the classic cars. Is it when they say classic cars, do they mean the old ones from the 80s and 90s, or do they mean the old Camaros that they raced right before the series closed down?
Yeah, I'm not sure which version he has, but he's been collecting IROC cars for years. He has them in his shop. So yeah, Ray's been strategically pulling in old IROC cars for a long time. But you'd have to have, I don't know what they would do, 10, 12 car races that would be something of equal preparation. He has been hiring a ton of people lately too. At the Ray Evernham garage. So there's a lot happening with Ray, and I don't know if the two are tied together, but that's very odd timing.
Yeah, very odd. Kevin, what do you think?
Man, racing's racing to me. I mean, open wheel, closed wheel, a truck with a V10 with big old tires on out there, crushing
2 wheels,
crushing car. Yeah, 2 wheels. Jeremy McGrath and Ricky Carmichael. Man, racing's racing, and it stinks that Tony Stewart couldn't get that up and running, but to see IROC back, the 24-hour races and all that. So we'll see how that goes and see how that ties into like the Rolex scheduling interference between IMSA and those types. So we'll see if IROC gets fired off this year.
Well, with IROC, it's not with IROC. I don't know if you've seen IROC or not. I don't know how long you've been a fan of racing, but IROC was actually kind of like what SRX is. It was about four races, 12 drivers from like different series, IRL, NASCAR, F1, all the other stuff. Hold on just a second.
Maybe we need somebody cool.
Maybe Mac.
But they used to do like 4 races. They'd start at Daytona and they would end at like maybe, I don't know, Talladega. But Earnhardt was one of the biggest names.
Yeah, I think they did Daytona. I want to say Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
Talladega for sure. There was one more. Did they run Indianapolis?
They did run Indianapolis. Yes, they did.
Right.
They ran Texas, Atlanta.
Sure did.
They ran the Daytona road course. That was actually cool to see because they had headlights on them cars. That was cool.
Wild news. Interesting.
Yeah. So Todd, when it comes to your racing career, when did you get your racing career started, and what made you want to choose monster trucks?
So we have an hour, right? So I was, in diapers at a little track called Fonda Speedway in upstate New York with my dad. That's where I started going to the racetrack. Then my dad's friend Paul Montanaro owned a racetrack, a go-kart track called Dodge Speedway in Cobleskill, New York. I went there. They needed an announcer. I tried out and got the job. I think I was 13 or 14. And then I ended up doing the other go-kart tracks, announcing those in the area. Caroga Creek Raceway, just south of Caroga Lake, New York. And then Albany Saratoga Speedway had a go-kart track at that time. So I was pretty young, announcing 3 nights a week during the summer. And went on to announce. I was the youngest announcer at Fonda Speedway. Actually got that job when I was 16. And we're talking Super Dirt Car Series would go there. Rick Lucia was my boss. He had the track so a real deep, steep learning curve there. Announced a little bit of Albany Saratoga Speedway, the big track, Lebanon Valley. I did Super Dirt Week upstate New York. And then I got a chance to jump into a kart one night, and just out of the blue, this guy had 2 karts, and I jumped in one and ended up winning the race. My first time ever on dirt in a kart. There was like 14 of us, and I had to start last and came through. It was a thrill. So from there on out, it was like, man, I can do this. But I didn't have a bunch of money. Our family wasn't rich by any means. We got pizza every 2 weeks. That's what we did. So, and then I went to, I kept announcing short tracks all over. Any gig I could get, I would do, and made a pretty decent living as a kid, honestly, through high school and stuff. Doing local dirt tracks and short tracks and traveling series, things like that. I went to Daytona. I had a disc with me, and my goal was to meet Ken Squire. And when I went there, I met Ken, and I said, hey, I want to move up in my career. So the racing part was just, as I could, because I didn't have any money. So, but I'll get to the monster truck deal here shortly. So I met Ken and gave him my disc, my demo disc. And he said, stay right here. I was in the fan zone at Daytona. He goes, wait, I'm going to go have lunch. I'm going to my car. I'll put the disc in the player in the rental car and I'll listen to it. I sat there an hour. I'm like, this guy's not coming back. So anyway, he walks back through. He says, I'm going to need some help at Atlanta Motor Speedway. I want you to call Ed Clark, general manager. Tell him I sent you. So I call Ed Monday. And I said, hey, Ken Squire sent me. He said, yes, there's tryouts. Get yourself here. We're not going to put you up. Get your own rooming, all that stuff. And so I went in this room at Atlanta weeks later, and I did a tryout. There was a bunch of actors there. They called each one of us individually into a room, a boardroom. They had a race playing on and basically said, announce it. And so it was like, I don't know, some old race with Kane in it. And I knew the cars, I knew the situation, and I just started announcing. So I announced 2 laps off a TV screen, and he goes, okay, guys, thanks. We'll call you if we want you. And I'm like, well, that went awful. So 3 weeks later, 707 area code called me, and it was Ed, and he said, hey, you got the job at Atlanta. So here I am, finally got my break. I go announce at Atlanta for 2 seasons, and then they said, hey, come to Charlotte. I want you to announce Charlotte too. So I did all the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck, Atlanta and Charlotte. I did some stuff in Phoenix, a little bit, and then came to town. And so I'm like, oh, I'll go watch and see what it's all about. And so when I went, I'm like, man, I could announce this. And so I go and I talk to Scott Douglas, who's legendary monster truck announcer. And I'm like, hey, can I try this out? Like, and he's like, let me make a phone call. And so he says, can you stay for the next 3 shows? It was a 4-show weekend. And he's like, yep, we'll get you a room. Stay right here with us. And so I started announcing monster trucks that weekend. Ended up doing 5 seasons with Monster Jam. And then I had a chance to try out and drive. I drive. And just with no money, it's difficult. And so I had a chance to go test with Jimmy and Dawn Cretan. Tested the Bounty Hunter monster truck, the Iron Outlaw monster truck, and ended up getting a part-time position with driving, and did 5 or 6 years of driving with them. And then I bounced around and drove some other trucks, the Wicked truck, Freedom Keeper. I've probably driven like 10 different trucks. That you're putting up there, that was Wicked. Out in California, the toughest monster truck tour. Ended up winning. That was one of my biggest winning weekends. I won a lot of elements in the overall championship for that weekend. And now it's a mixed bag. I bought some, got a little bit more money now. Bought a couple of race cars of our own. I do some local racing on the dirt track, and I jump in a truck whenever I can. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's a variety. It's been a wild life.
Sounds like it. But that's actually pretty cool how you started out as like a small local announcer. Then all of a sudden you're working Charlotte, you're working Atlanta, you're working all these big tracks, all these big races. That's quite a resume there.
Well, and it took all that. So this past year I got my first shot with RN Radio. I did road but it took all of that to get a shot with MRN. It's just been, you just can't stop. You can't quit. You just got to keep going and pushing for that next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you ever do the Monster Jam tour, or was it just the toughest trucks?
I did Monster Jam for, let's see, I announced for Monster Jam for 3 seasons. I had 2 arena tours and a stadium tour. And then when I went to work for Jimmy and Dawn Cretan, I don't know what it was, 3 or 4 seasons of, first I went to arenas, and then I had 2 stadium tours. But yeah, Monster Jam was a big part of my life for 4 or 5 years.
Nice. Yeah, I grew up watching Monster Jam. Like, it was always, who I grew up watching was Goldberg, Tom Mintz, Gravedigger,
Sure.
Medusa, all those old legendary drivers, Avenger,
Yeah.
all of them. It's just like
don't tell Medusa she's old. She'll probably beat you up. But you mentioned some of those trucks. So Tom Mintz, he was in Goldberg. Of course, everyone remembers Dennis Anderson in.
Dennis Anderson.
But the thing with Gravedigger is there was like 6 of them. So there was Charlie Pauken was in one. A variety of drivers have driven. Brandon Vinson's in one now. Adam Anderson's in one. Son of a Digger's Ryan Anderson. Kristen Anderson's in a Gravedigger. So there's been a variety. Go back a little further here. Chad Tingler was in a Gravedigger. So there's been a variety of drivers that have come in and out of Gravedigger over the years. Everyone, that goes to a monster truck show that might not be fully educated on the industry doesn't realize that just about every Monster Jam show has a Gravedigger. There's that out
That is true. Sometimes I think a friend of mine went to the 30th. What was it, the 30th anniversary, 50th anniversary? I don't
Yeah,
remember when all the trucks were there.
passed by there a few years ago.
It was what was that? I'm sorry.
I said the 30th anniversary was just a few years ago. I think 35 was last year, maybe. So, but there's it's been around a long time.
Yeah, because I think every time I turn around, oh, there's Gravedigger. Oh, there's a Gravedigger again. So I used to have one of those black I used to have one of those black Gravedigger skull flags, pirate flags.
Yeah, yep. I can't tell you how many of them they've signed and given away.
A whole
Especially
lot.
when Dennis is driving, man, he just runs that truck into the ground and he doesn't care.
Yep. I've been to a bunch of shows with him and competed against him, announced events he was in, and yeah, he would bury that thing every week. But it was all, of course, all for the fans.
Yep. Do you have so other than the local racing, do you have any like monster truck stuff lined up for 2024, or is that still a work in progress?
So 2024, I'm announcing Kicker Monster Truck Nationals. I'm going to do a bunch of Hot Wheels Monster Truck live announcing. My short track deal that I'm going to try to race, depending on my work schedule, like to hit 10 races if I can. I'd be super happy to do, 10 or 12 this year if it's possible. I go to work as an operations manager this year for the Premier Lacrosse League. That's professional lacrosse that travels across the entire United States. That's on ESPN. I'll be called in the fall called the Magic of Lights Tour. It's drive-through light shows in 21 cities. Will probably end up being 23, 24, 25 cities coming up. If you go through a drive-through light show, that's something I help manage. So it's a full bag, full package of of activity here for the year.
Yeah, when you mentioned the Premier Lacrosse, I remember you being here in Columbus. What was it last summer?
It was. Yep.
Because I was like, hey, you're in my neck of the woods.
That's right. Yeah, Columbus was one of our stops. We went down to Louisville for the All-Star game. I guess we're going to go back there again. So the PLL is doing something a little bit different this year. There's home teams now, which is kind of nice. So it's a new merchandise package. It's a it'll tweak the TV a little bit, but it'll be cool. They'll it's certainly growing as a major sport.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, since you have some racing knowledge, let's talk some racing. So as you guys know, right now ongoing is the Chili Bowl Nationals, qualifying prelim nights and stuff. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is racing there tonight alongside Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson raced a late model race last night and didn't do so well. I think either he blew a shock or the motor blew or something. I can't remember. But he's in Tulsa for tonight's for today's preliminaries. And
You got a lot on, my man.
don't wrap it like that. But anyway, sorry, kind of rascal a little rascal.
There.
But let's see. So far some details and results is. I'll be right back.
All good.
Kevin, you got it from here for right now?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Hey, Kevin, you know what's kind of funny is I don't know if you saw the tweet earlier today. Well, I don't know if it's on X. What do you call it now? I still call it a tweet, but I don't know. So Larson didn't have quite that good of a night, like you said, and then wanted to go back over to the Chili Bowl. Did you see how he forgot his gear bag in at Vado Speedway?
Oh, I didn't.
So he forgot it. Got it from there over to Tulsa for him. But he landed and tweeted, "I forgot my gear bag." Because I'm sure he doesn't swap out suits or helmets or any of that stuff. I imagine it would all stay right with him.
I'd assume so. With him running dirt, most of his sponsors pretty much stay the same, apart from the Cup Series.
Yeah, I didn't hear the last thing you said. His sponsors do what?
I think his sponsors pretty much stay the same. I don't really think they change a whole lot between the late models and the Chili Bowl Nationals, unlike the Cup Series, having a different sponsor on the car almost every week.
Yeah, well, if you like here, HendrickCars.com really was on a lot. That was an interesting interview. I heard Rick Hendrick being interviewed about that. You're going to pick up some sponsorship. Why is this out of your own pocket? HendrickCars.com was selling so many cars with Kyle that he decided to keep it that way. It became a business decision. They didn't need another partner. So many cars because of Kyle's presence that it just ended up staying that way, which I thought was wild. I knew they were on a sponsor hunt, and then it just stopped. And he said, he's selling cars for us. So many cars that it funds this Cup car, which is surprising. He's back from the circus.
He's what?
I said, you're back from the circus.
Yo. But so some of our former guests from last season, Kevin, like I had mentioned to you, I think it was yesterday, but Ava Dobson said she's having a team meeting, I think, this week. And it's a possibility that I could be a part of that team for the Mid-Ohio testing and for the Mid-Ohio races this coming summer.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I mean, Mid-Ohio is a special track, especially when it comes to the F1 series, or the F Formula series.
IndyCar.
Oh, that's right. She's IndyCar.
She is, yep. She's the United States Formula Juniors. Yeah, that series.
But NASCAR, I guess, just really didn't make it there. And to me, if you ask me, I'm going to be one of the people that tells you there's too many road courses on the schedule already. So I don't really care for them. Indy cars, they made their debut, not just Indianapolis, but some of the best racing as far as road course racing and street racing goes is IndyCar. So to be able to be a part of that, be a part of that team testing, man, it's just...
Yeah, absolutely.
David Dobson's got a lot of talent, and she's going to go places. So
she
be
is.
a part of
and
something like that in the development of that driver.
She is, and not only that, there's Meyer Shank Racing is located right here in Columbus. They're not focused. So speaking of Meyer Shank, they're not racing IMSA this year. They are only focused on their IndyCar program this year. So you will not see an MSR entry into the Rolex 24 this year, due to the fact that they put a hold on the sports car division just so they can focus on IndyCar.
All right.
Because they pretty much lost Helio Castroneves full time.
What is the kid at your two?
What was that?
What is the child count at the two houses here? Oh my goodness! How many we got?
2.
You got 2.
Oh, I've got one.
One. Okay. Boy, oh boy!
I know, it's like a circus. Hey!
Well, in other racing news too, Jordan, Kyle Busch picks up an alcoholic sponsor for the Cup Series for 2024.
Oh, that's dope.
Rebel Kentucky Bourbon.
Yep, Rebel.
Nice.
Also went a Premier Cross sponsor. Very well. And I guess it was multiple year too, Kevin. I think it was. I think it's 2 or 3.
It's a 2-year primary race sponsorship.
Nice. I'm sure they didn't pick up all the races, but they've got a few.
Oh, I'm sure. With 3Chi and Cheddar's last year being pretty much the 2 main sponsors, I'm sure that one of them probably didn't want to pick up as many races this year as they did last year. So,
right.
But the fact that we're able to actually, NASCAR's allowing us to have alcohol sponsors besides Busch anymore, that they're allowing that back into the sport. So maybe the sport's headed back in the right direction.
Yeah, when you look at Busch, switching over to Ross Chastain. There was rumors that those numbers are like $94 million. So with that number, I'm imagining got to be at least a 3 or 4 year deal, if not 5. I know that a primary was running about $20 million a year. My guess would be you're going to see Busch on the one car at least 3 seasons, probably 4.
Yeah, and it was also announced today that Family Dollar and Dollar Tree is going to be a sponsor for Legacy Motorsports.
Yep, I saw the post.
Why? I have zero clue as to why, but okay.
Demographic, man. That's their demographic. You got to have. I mean, when you're a NASCAR fan, you go into town, you got to buy something from somewhere. You know,
that is true. That's very true.
Richard Petty on his Facebook page is walking out a Dollar Tree with bags full of stuff, and I saw somebody online said, "That's why the Dollar Tree is now $1.25 because we got to sponsor Jimmy Johnson's team."
That's actually funny.
Well, and then Stuart Haas this year, we have Noah Gragson taking over the 10 car. According to Legacy Motorsports, Noah took all of his sponsors with him.
Yeah, which would be Bass Pro, which was also a Stuart Haas sponsor of Tony Stewart at one point.
Mm-hmm.
What did he have besides Bass Pro? Well, Tractor Boat, that's kind of the same deal.
He had Wendy's.
Oh yeah,
Rifle Coffee.
Yep. Wendy's is going to be a big.
Mm-hmm.
The Fire Seeker Resort, or I can't remember what it was, some sort of the gray and teal type car. It was some sort of resort that was on there.
Yeah, and I think today Jimmy Johnson announced his 2024 schedule. The Daytona 500 is not included on it, though.
He is not a fan of speedways, though. Jimmy Johnson does not like those big wrecks, and he can pick and choose. My guess with Jimmy Johnson is that someone is, and I don't know if Carvana is coming back, but my guess would be whatever his sponsor wants him to run track wise is what he's doing.
So he might be doing the because I know Kyle Larson's doing the double this year, which I'm really excited to see how well he does it in IndyCar. I'm super excited for that. I've been to the 500 twice. 2015 when Juan Pablo Montoya came from 33rd to 1st. In 2017, I watched Takuma Sato win his first.
Well, let's be glad Juan Pablo Montoya learned his lesson in NASCAR. He didn't go back to IndyCar hitting jet dryers.
I was a senior in high school for that race.
I'm trying to remember who said they were going to come back out of retirement. Some driver like that. There was a former open wheel. Oh, Robbie Gordon. Robbie Gordon said he wants.
Yes, Robbie Gordon.
Yep.
He's doing very well with his stadium truck racing.
Yes, he is. Not only is he able to win quite a bit, he also owns the series and does all the contracts with IndyCar when it's a shared weekend. So yeah, he's doing just fine.
Yep, and I think he had it here. At Mid Ohio a few years ago.
Did he do Dakar here recently?
I believe he did. But so far, here are the races that Jimmy Johnson will be racing in. Texas on April 14th, Dover on April 28th, Kansas on May 5th, the Coca-Cola 600, Kansas in September, and Vegas in October.
He's so good.
Those short tracks, huh?
Shortest ones. Like, he's so good at Dover, though.
He really is.
He's a company man. So if he's in a competition meeting and they're like, we need help in this area, I don't expect Jimmy Johnson to go out and win. I expect Jimmy Johnson to go out with a different setup than everybody else and be a test guy for a certain amount of races. In an actual in a race scenario, that'd be one of the smartest things. He's not eligible for the playoffs. He's not eligible for the Cup, so it's really not going to hurt
anything really. I mean, even if he crashes out, they still have the S&T data from the car for however many laps that he ran to be able to better the setups for that particular track. So
yeah,
that and Legacy Motorsports going over to Toyota, I'm sure that, switching from Chevrolet to Toyota, I'm sure there's a lot of S&T data that'll change just because the manufacturer. It won't be much, but it'll be something that Jimmy's going to have to get used to because he's been with Chevy the whole time that he's been in NASCAR.
Yeah, and it's gonna be weird seeing that. Just like with Josh Berry moving over from Chevrolet at Junior Motorsports to replacing one of the greatest drivers of our generation, Kevin Harvick. That's gonna be a tough shoes to fill. Tough seat to fill.
Big shoes to fill, but remember when Josh Berry was in the 9 filling in for Chase Elliott, he did pretty well. I mean, I think he had a runner-up finish and another top 10.
He did. Yes, he did.
To me, that's huge coming from the Xfinity Series with no Cup experience at all, and then to hop into that car. Now, granted, it's an amazing car, top tier equipment, but I'm sure that turned a lot of heads right there. That may be what really pushed Tony Stewart over the edge to say, okay, Harvick's moving over to Fox. Let's go get Josh Berry and pay whatever you have to pay to get him. Because he's going to leave Junior Motorsports. He had a Chevrolet deal. I'm sure there was a Hendrick thought at some point down the road. It had to be a chunk of money or a long-term deal to get Josh Berry to come over.
I mean, with the whole Hendrick thing, Hendrick's got his camp right now. Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman, they've got a stable over there that works for now. So honestly, I really didn't see as much as I would hope that they would put him in a Hendrick Motorsports car. The fact that he's going to some pretty top tier equipment still over at Stewart-Haas. Let's hope that with this blue oval that he might be able to pull out of his rear end what he was able to do with the 9 car last year. So,
yeah, I kind of thought Kevin thought that yes, you would keep the Junior Motorsports Xfinity Series program, but I thought we're going to go to one Cup car, and I kind of thought that one Cup car would have been a saddle car, and that's where Josh Berry would go. But they never pulled the trigger on the charter, so which is good Lord. I think Live Fast sold their charter some crazy number like $49 or something. Jay McLeod and Matt Tift over there at Live Fast. Now they're still going to race, but you can't for a team that young. You put over $40 million in front of their face and have to sell the charter, but Junior's not willing to come off of that money. Could he? Yeah, but it's not a wise business for him.
Junior said in a Junior Download episode a couple months ago that Junior, like they were trying to get it in place. Him and Kelly were trying to get it in place so Junior Motorsports could go Cup racing. But like you said, I mean, with the price of charters now, instead of spending anywhere from $7 to $18 million, you're paying anywhere from the likes of 35 plus for a single car charter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Junior's got money, but, trying to keep what he's already established in the Xfinity Series and also go Cup racing, that's a lot to do. I mean, look at Kyle Busch Motorsports. They were around for years. And then this upcoming, Kyle said, I've got to focus on me. So he sells KBM to Spire Motorsports.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to help focus for Kyle. Obviously, it helped him financially with the deal that they signed. But as far as with these new next-gen cars, there are still a lot of these guys that are still figuring these things out. Kyle Busch being one of them. Look
at the moves from Kyle Busch, even in the last week. He shut down Rowdy Energy.
Unfortunately,
where he is liquidating left and right. What that setup will be? Maybe it's a Brexton move. Let's liquidate everything. Let's get as much cash in as we can to kind of set up Brexton for his next foray into what he's going to do. So Brexton's in a mid sprint, maybe call it at Millbridge or something like that. The next step for him, no, they're not going to go small with it. whatever it is, they're going to put hey, Harvick, they're all roughly years. A lot of dads and moms making moves right now for that they're successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it might be a move for Brexton because it's off because I guess Kyle even said I think an interview the other day, he said that before the check was even signed and the deal was even made, Spire Motorsports was already cashing that check. Yeah.
Yeah, he said before the ink even had time to dry and the money had time to clear in the bank, he said Spire Motorsports already had Kyle's name off the building and the sign outside.
Yeah,
I was just thinking like, dang.
That was Spire's story, I think. But I mean, hey, why would if the money's good and it's there? But think about Kyle Busch has had Xfinity Series team. He's owned multiple. About his blood, everything building it. Bam, we're gonna switch it out, and it had to be an emotional time. I mean, the championships that came out of that building. William Byron came out of that building. Who else?
Bubba Wallace came out of that building.
Bubba Wallace. Yeah, think about the people. Like he's helped build careers, and now it's sold. So it's probably an emotional thing, that okay, my name's off the building, and well, now the paint's changing, and this is changing, and that's changing, and all my assets are gone, and it's a positive financial move, but it's got to be a little bit of an emotional deal too.
Yeah, considering how long, how much time and how much sweat and blood that he had put into that company. Sure. I mean, racing, up until they made the rule that Cup drivers were only allowed 5 races in the lower series, he was racing every time he could get behind the wheel of the truck.
Oh, he does race. Absolutely.
Man, and then all the dirt races, like last year I took mine myself to Bulls Gap, Tennessee, down there at Volunteer Speedway. It's 15 minutes down the road from me. He was out there trying to get experience and try to get a little track time for the Cup race that weekend. What was it last week? They were in, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Tulsa, but he ended up colliding with somebody and took a tumble in a sprint car. Brexton did the same thing, like father, like son, coming out of 4, and he ended up on his roof too. So Brexton's just, when that kid comes up, it's going to be that kid Brexton. Everybody's going to know who Kyle Busch's kid is.
Oh, of course. And the corporate dollars behind him already. I think Surf Pro's with him. There's a few other companies on board, but the corporate help. I mean, he's already getting groomed. He does a great interview. He has people that work right alongside of him so that he doesn't make a misstep. All the professionals Kyle has at his disposal, so does Brexton. And you look at that crop of kids coming up, and Brexton is really showing himself to be something of the future. And I can't wait to watch him. It's going to be awesome. I think Kyle said he talked about his timeline. When was this? Fall, maybe it was summer. But his timeline of how long am I going to race, and it's all on Brexton's timeline. Well, he can do short tracks at 15. He can do intermediates at 16, or however that works. 18, he can do this. That'll put me at this age, and then I'm out. Just it's all funneled through that kid.
The only series he doesn't have a championship in is a truck series. He said, he wants to spend, anywhere from 8 to 10 more seasons doing Cup. And after that, before the year before that Brexton comes and takes it over full time, he wants to go race a full-time truck schedule, win a truck championship, and then share that truck the next year with Brexton.
Yeah, and watch out, because he will.
Oh, yeah. Don't put it, man. Kyle Busch is one of those. He's like Dale Sr. Love him or hate him, man. Victory lane is always right there in front of his nose.
Did you guys see something really interesting to me? Kyle Busch had a ton of haters, right? The tide has changed with that deal. When he went to Chile, all of a sudden, people are like, man, he's over with Richard? I mean, Richard punched him in the face once. This is crazy stuff.
And then as a signing bonus, Richard gave him the watch that that he was wearing that day. So, obviously bygones have been bygones, but, even going over to Brexton, Richard Childress, when he signed Kyle, he gave Brexton a lifetime contract. But I didn't know this either. Behind the sidelines or behind the scenes, RCR is also funding Brexton's dirt racing.
Oh, I'm sure.
So with Kyle, RCR, they're building Brexton's engines. Kyle's getting engines from ECR, and then Kyle's doing the rest of it. But to have, there ain't no other kid out there on that dirt track, including Cash Boyer and Harvick's little boy, that have got the motor and the money behind them like Brexton does.
How about you rolling an ECR engine inside that little thing? That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it comes down to contracts and money and yada yada. So you mentioned Cash. By the way, how about an awesome name, Cash? That's amazing.
So
Cash Boyer, Brexton Bush,
Keelan Harvick,
Larson's kid. What the holy cow! What a future! That's awesome.
Don't forget about Leo Gordon and Ella Gordon.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. That Gordon guy, he's got a kid too.
Well, and then how about the move for Sheldon Creed? Look at the end of the year. Look what happened at Martinsville.
Oh, so I listen to SiriusXM a lot. I was listening to Skinner Roundup and Mike Skinner, Angie Skinner, and some of the stuff that Sheldon spouted off. And Mike said, just you can't burn bridges. Sometimes you just got to keep your mouth shut because you never look at Kyle Busch and Richard Childress. Sometimes you just got to keep your mouth shut, take it, move on, because he said, nobody can win in this 2-car. Nobody can win. Problem is, if you go over to JGR and you don't win, you were the problem at that point.
Yep.
That's hard, man. You can't say that stuff.
No. I mean, you're still in, even if you're in the Cup Series, man, perfect, Kyle Larson, perfect example. Keep your mouth shut. Granted, he was, Chip Ganassi had intermediate equipment, if he wanted to run anywhere from,
I'd say B+.
Yeah, and I mean, he won several races, in the last year he was with Chip Ganassi. He took him all the way to the round of 8 with that win at Dover.
Yep.
So, I mean, but then again, here come that off season, and he said what he said on that iRacing, and then boom, just like that, his whole world is turned upside down. He loses his ride, he loses his sponsors, he loses the deal with Chevrolet. I didn't know this, but his flow racing stuff for his late models, he lost all of those sponsorship dollars too with that.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, I mean, it is what it is. And the way that Sheldon acted, with RCR, what happens when he doesn't have a break? Maybe if he wouldn't have burned that bridge, RCR might have been like, okay, we need a driver. We'll go ahead and put you here and see how this works out one more time.
Yeah.
But with that bridge being gone, especially with somebody like Richard Childress, obviously he didn't get punched in the face like Kyle did, but I'm sure that thought probably crossed Richard's mind with the stuff that he said.
I'll tell you, him and Andy Petrie were nose to nose in Martinsville. And
I saw that too. Him and Andrew Petrie cussing back and forth after the race.
Andy Petrie's a veteran of the sport, man. He's raced. He's owned a team before. Remember, he owned a truck team. Yep. I mean, yeah. I know it's hard to mouth shut sometimes, and it's emotional getting out of a car, and especially what happened in Martinsville. It's just yeah. I
mean, and if you have a passion like these guys do, I mean, I can understand being pissed off getting out of the race car.
Sure.
Some days, but like you said, it's one of those things you got to bite your tongue, and you got to do your interview, whatever. And famous words of Kyle Busch, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Like, I mean,
Yep.
Do your interview. Keep your mouth shut. Don't put any negativity out there in the world, and go on to next week. Go out there and try to win that race, man.
Who was the NFL player that did that?
Marshawn Lynch.
That's it. I remember somebody was like, by the way, Lynch played for Seahawks. Pete Carroll is retiring. What?
Yeah.
Yep.
Along with
And-
Nick Saban.
Nick Saban?
Yep.
Yes.
And that's crazy. And see, I'm a Patriots fan. We just said goodbye to Bill Belichick today. I'm like, what is going on this year?
You guys have had a very hard year.
Oh, did we lose him?
Hey, I'm back.
There we go.
My bad.
I was backstage.
That was my bad.
And I know it's a racing show, but go Pack go. Go Pack go. You gotta eliminate those Cowboys.
Oh my Lord.
You know?
My best friend is a Cowboys fan, and he is riding on that high right now, man. And I told they always do good during the regular season, but once the playoffs hit, it's a choke show.
Man, and okay, so granted, you talk about a choke show. Aaron Rodgers, same deal. Now he's in New York. Now Jordan Love, and Love looks so stinking good right now. It's ridiculous the things he's doing. Now, aside from his fumble last week, that was a perfect game. And I know everybody in Green Bay or Green Bay fans or whatever are sitting there going, did we just get another quarterback again?
But the question now is, who coaches Alabama next year? Who coaches New England next year?
Well,
and
as
who
far as
coaches Seattle?
Alabama goes, there's already two prospects they're looking at that I've been following. Georgia's offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo, and Butch Jones.
Okay.
And why Alabama would go the direction of Butch Jones, I don't know, because Butch Jones butchered Tennessee when he was up there.
Bobo's looking at NFL stuff too. There's 10 coaching vacancies in the NFL right now.
Well, and Kirby Smart, Atlanta just fired their head coach. Kirby Smart is thinking about taking a job in Atlanta and leaving the University of Georgia. So there hell's another open head coaching job.
But it's like this, and with everything that happened this is going to taste nasty coming out of my mouth, but that team, I'm just going to say it like this way, that team up north in Ann Arbor.
Go Wolverines.
They might be losing Harbaugh, because I think Harbaugh is going to the NFL. After all that stuff that happened, with all the NCAA and stuff this past season, I think he's done with the NCAA. I think he's going back to the NFL.
I mean, and that kind of stinks because, the last 3 or 4 seasons, Harbaugh has built a program up there at Michigan.
He did, yeah.
I mean, if you look at his last 4 years, he is 3-1 against Ohio State. Okay.
Should be 0-4, but go on.
Well, you guys have Ryan Day, so excuses. No, I mean, and then the last 3, so you have 3 playoff appearances, with finally this one making it to the title game and winning a title game. How do you leave a program that you've built like that? I can see how hard it would be for Saban. 17 years at Alabama and money. But here we go. Saban's a good coach, but went to the NFL and completely just dropped off the radar. Like he wasn't any good at all. Jim Harbaugh,
no, he wasn't.
He was the coach over at San Francisco for a while, wasn't he? Okay.
I mean,
that falling out that they had, I don't know if I see him going pro again.
But if he was to go pro again, I think Vegas wants him, Washington wants him, Chargers. Hell, I'll take him in New England. Shoot.
Oh, Cincinnati's got a good coach, so we're good. We're good. As soon as we can get Burrow back out there, we'll go back to winning Super Bowls. So,
I was in Cincinnati during practice when he went the first time. I was driving through. There's a bridge that comes across. You can look right down on the practice field. They're all huddled around.
Yeah, Paycor Stadium is right there, and then their indoor practice stuff is right next door.
Yep. How about the other Harbaugh, though? I'm telling you, man, the Ravens, holy cow.
I think it's going to be San Francisco and Baltimore in the
easy. at Green Bay, Baltimore. Excuse me.
I mean, Green Bay,
see,
Baltimore.
I'm
That's
saying
still a good
this.
game. Jordan Love versus Lamar Jackson. I mean, that's a headliner.
Listen,
You
this
know,
is a real rebuilding year for Green Bay. So whatever happens now is gravy because no one expects no one.
And it can only
nobody
get better
can
from here.
fill. Look, Aaron Rodgers filled Brett Favre's shoes. Now somebody's got to fill Aaron Rodgers' shoes.
And nobody thought that was good. I mean, how do you go? I mean, think about the three quarterbacks. You got, Bart Starr, Favre, and Pop. And that's not all, but the stuff that Jordan Love's progressions.
And the way that he plays, he almost reminds me, if Johnny Manziel wouldn't have got in trouble and actually would have did real good, he reminds me of Johnny Manziel, the way that he plays.
I just got called and we have a contract deal and it was more driving.
Hey, Jordan.
Hold on.
Hey, Jordan, mute your mic, buddy.
Oops.
No, sir.
He left us. Didn't bother to mute. Anyway,
It is what it is.
he went in, cooked some hot, came back. It's all right.
Anyway, before we sign off, we did lose 2 racing legends over the course of the last several weeks from the last time we was on air. We lost. Hold on.
I'll lose his phone.
Mute. There you go.
Cale Yarborough, certainly. Had a chance to meet Cale at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it was amazing. I mean, that guy is. Did you hear Did you hear the Hall of Fame story he told?
I did not.
Oh my goodness! So he says that they're on a very limited budget. Him and his wife, trying to race, trying to do whatever. So Cale and his wife are going through the grocery store, and an entire cart full of stuff, and they right out. They get to the end of the aisle, and it's a basket with like 100 cans of black-eyed peas for 10 cents a piece.
Oh, wow.
He looks at his wife and he says, "Let's put it all back, and let's buy every single one of these cans of black-eyed peas. We will eat for weeks off of this." And it got them fuel to go to their next race. I mean, it saved them so much money. So he says, here we are, ready for the Hall of Fame induction.
Get off the thing.
A few weeks prior, the wife gets a phone call, and he picks the phone up, and he says, "This is the dress store, and your wife's dress." And he says, "How much is the dress?" And she's like, "You don't want to know." And he goes, "Well, we paid for the dress, and now we're eating black-eyed peas again." I about fell over.
That's great.
But anyway, it's rest in peace to Cale Yarborough. Rest in peace to Jules D. Farron. Todd, thank you for stopping by. Maybe one day in the future we can have you back on again. And Kevin, until next time. Todd, until next time. And those to you watching, this has been Motorsports Race Talk Podcast, and we'll see you again soon.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah.